You're listening to 1232, an audio epic, produced by RumbleStump Entertainment. Episode 30. Priest Michael hadn't moved from his spot, standing square, watching as Rhona had delighted the crowd with her knife-throwing skills. His gaze was pulled from Rhona and Cardigan to the dogs, fighting next to the table, and he motioned to Flint.
Flint, there is your hound.
Pointing to a skinny one trying to steal a bone from another.
Yeah, that's her. What should we do?
Leave her be. If you try to catch her, she would suspect something and run. And we do not know what she may have heard or how long she's been here. We will have to set a trap for her. Come, let us get your sister to help.
Flint nodded and grabbed Rhona. Around the corner of a shed, they discussed a way to trap the enchanted spy.
Okay, now Flint, one more time. You're the bait. Once you get her around here, we will shut the gate and she won't have anywhere to run. If you can't get her tied up, you remember the signal. We'll wait over there, okay? Just don't spook her.
Rhona said, and patting Flint on the shoulder.
No pressure. It's just the success or failure of the whole thing on you, right now.
With a smirk, she and the priest walked to their post. Flint took a deep breath and adjusted his glasses. He went back to the table and sat down, where Lord Gandwy and his family were still merrymaking. Smith was there too, and he noticed Flint. They got into a conversation about food, and Flint ended up trying to explain what chicken nuggets were to the whole table. There was so much laughing and carrying on that Rhona thought maybe Flint forgot his mission. But when her brother had everyone relaxed and enjoying themselves, he leaned back and offered the dog a bone under the table. She took it, ate it rapidly, and came back again. After that, Flint left, grabbing a handful of food when he did. Watching from a distance, Rhona came close to feeling proud of Flint. He wasn't acting jittery like normal. In fact, she noticed he was cool. Well, almost cool.
Come on, Scooby. I got you a whole meal here. Come on.
Flint said in a high-pitched voice and whistling. The dog hesitated, slowly following him around the corner of the shed. Flint sat down on a blanket and patted it to welcome the dog. He felt sorry for her, whoever she was, trapped inside the enchantment. The dog looked suspiciously at the blanket and retreated a couple steps. Flint dumped out the food, and that did it. She came right up and started woofing it down. Flint petted her and slipped a rope around her neck and tied a knot, the one Rhona had showed him. He signaled to Rhona, who waved back, and went to make sure there was no way out of the courtyard, in case Flint couldn't tie a good knot. Flint sat beside the dog, quiet and contemplative, for the first time all day. He pondered about what life would be like if he were cursed to live a half-life as an animal. Daydreaming, he was startled by a snarling bark next to him. It made him jump. The dog turned on him and lunged for his neck. Flint got away in time, but the dog hit the end of the rope, crazed and mad, and the more it fought the rope, the more frantic it got.
It's almost night, laddie. The demon is changing.
I guess I should have remembered she was a demon and not just a dog.
The dog's outburst had rattled him. They watched the animal writhe at the end of the lead.
You don't think the rope is hurting her, do you?
Not if you tied the knot I showed you. Holy cow, she's mad.
We must watch her closely. There are still a chance she could escape. One of you should fetch Pitch Cardigan here. Rhona, would you be so kind?
Rhona gladly left, deeply disturbed. She didn't like what she saw, and didn't want any part of it. The hound had always bothered her. Its eyes changed from animal to human, and now it was foaming at the mouth, fighting the rope, rabid. On her way to find Cardigan, she wondered if the priest was right about it being a demon.
I still don't think this stupid half-life magic crap is real. I guess we'll just watch and see.
Rhona found Cardigan with Daffod over by the horses. He had Daffod up on Hewlin, and they were talking when Rhona walked up.
Hey, Cardigan, the priest wants you to come interrogate the dog spy thing by the shed over there. We caught her, or well, actually Flint did.
Cardigan greeted her with a smile, and so did Daffod, looking a lot like his uncle.
I will go and see what I can discover.
Can I go?
Daffod asked, about to hop down.
No, stay here with Lady Rhona. I'll return soon and you can tell me the story of how you rode Heowen through the fire again.
Cardigan bowed to Rhona and walked away from them. Rhona didn't mind staying with the kid for now. If something strange happened with the boy, it would be in his imagination. She had figured out by now that the truth was weirder than fiction. At least, it was in 1232. Cardigan rounded the corner in time to see the hound transformed into the miserable woman Vera. One moment, the hound was twisting and snarling at the end of the rope. The next, a woman lay on the ground weeping. Her ragged appearance made Flint recoil a few steps. Hey, psst, real quick, let's hear a word from our awesome sponsors who make this show possible. Then, we'll get back to the episode. Hello, 1232 listeners, this is Callie Sue, and I'm excited to tell you about Dramify, the ultimate platform for creators and fans of audio dramas. With oodles of genres, hundreds of shows, and thousands of episodes, Dramify is your go-to streaming service exclusively for family-friendly audio dramas. Whether you're a devoted listener or a creator of a family-friendly masterpiece, Dramify has something for you. And guess what, 1232 listeners? You can now enjoy 1232 on Dramify. Just go to dramify.com/1232. That's DRAMAFY.com/1232 and get started for free. Happy listening.
This episode of 1232 is sponsored in part by Oasis Family Media and its family of companies including Oasis Audio, Enclave Publishing, and Sky Turtle Press. Publishers of the forthcoming epic Edmund Spenser's The Fairy Queen, rendered in modern prose by Rebecca K. Reynolds and illustrated by Justin Gerard. For more information, visit fairyqueen.com. That's fairyqueen.com, or find the link in the description below.
And now, back to the show. It was dark now, and the three men were hard to see. Even more invisible was the spy, who crawled to the end of the rope and croaked for water.
Easy, Vera. Take it easy. Drink slowly. There you go. Take your time. Here now, let's get up. Take my cloak.
Priest Michael brought her a small skin of water. He covered her with his cloak and helped her to her feet. She whimpered some, for the rope was still around her neck. Cardigan drew a knife and stepped up to her. Flint recoiled, thinking he was about to stab her, but instead he cut the rope off of her neck. The fact that the priest had been right about the possession did nothing for Flint's nerves. 5 minutes ago, he didn't think any of this was possible. He just stared hard in the dim light, trying to tell his brain to believe his eyes.
I'm sorry.
Her twisted mouth spraying saliva as she tried to enunciate.
Flint, I'm sorry I could have hurt you. You are my only friend,
Vera said, tears glinting in the starlight. Flint couldn't manage a response. All he could do was look at Cardigan, wondering what they were going to do with her now.
How long has this curse afflicted you, Vera?
She shrank away from him and curled up into a ball, taking the blanket Flint had been sitting on and pulling it over her head. After a minute or two, she answered.
7 years. You know my name.
Priest Michael stood a few feet away from her, turned his head skyward, and stretched out his hands, palms up. Flint assumed he was praying. He looked at Cardigan again, who was crouched down next to him, watching the quivering wad of blankets.
Vera, I knew you when you were a chieftain's daughter. When your father commanded you to marry, and you rebelled against him running away to join the Avalon Order. I was the one who brought news of the Christ to your clan. You remember me, don't you?
Priest Michael was now addressing the blankets, but Flint couldn't make out his face in the dark. He couldn't remember ever feeling so hopelessly sad, listening to Vera as she sobbed.
Yesu, the Christ, has come to set you free. He has shed his blood for you, and he defeated death. He defeated sin. Yesu lives. He is life. He is the light, and he offers you freedom. He will forgive your sins and set you free from the demon that has bound you. Do you want freedom, Vera?
The sobbing and trembling stopped. The blanket showed no sign of movement. She made no sound. All was still. Eerily still. Flint was absolutely weirded out. Then a voice came from the blanket, clear as crystal.
Leave me alone. No one can set her free. She's mine.
Flint looked around, expecting to see someone else. The voice was so otherworldly and didn't match the way Vera was just talking. Priest Michael bent down on one knee and said,
Yesu gave us authority in his name.
Then to the woman beneath the blanket, the priest spoke softly.
Vera, Yesu cares for you. In his mighty name, you're free from the demon.
The blanket moved again. This time it looked like someone was wrestling underneath it.
Demon, leave this woman and never return in the name of Yesu the Christ. By his name I bind you. You have no power over her. For he knows your name and he will cast you out. Now go!
Without realizing it, Flint had grabbed Cardigan's shoulder and was squeezing it. Eyes wide, he stood in amazement watching the scene. Whatever was going on under the blanket was violent. The woman threw herself to the ground, rolling around, struggling with an unseen enemy, until the moment the priest repeated the words,
Yesu the Christ!
Vera screamed, loud, and after a little more struggling beneath the blanket, she was still. They waited, and sobs began again. Vera slowly pulled the blanket off of her head. She looked worse than ever, breathing hard and crying. But she crawled to the priest, who opened his arms and embraced her. He held her there, crying with her for a long time. Vera held tightly to the priest, a soul set free from a tragic possession, finally finding peace. Flint let go of Cardigan's shoulder.
Sorry, man. Didn't mean to do that.
He said, a little embarrassed as Cardigan rubbed the pain out of it. But as usual, he grinned back at Flint, elbowing him as he stood up. Cardigan's humor eased Flint's tension. What he had witnessed put his entire body on edge. He was a Christian, he had read the Bible, and even the parts where Jesus had delivered people from demons. But now, Flint realized he must have never believed those stories. He had never once considered the fact that demons were real. They were in the same category as fairies and goblins and that type of thing. Things that Flint wanted to be real in a romantic, imaginary sort of way. Not anymore, though. Flint was shaken to the core. His palms were sweaty, his head filled with doubts. Was Priest Michael a charlatan? Was Cardigan a Jesus freak?
Where does that leave me?
Cardigan left them, but came back in a moment with a candle, some water, and some more food. Vera accepted graciously and tried to eat, but she was missing quite a few teeth, and that made it an arduous process for her to eat. Her face, however, looked different now. The tortured look in her eyes was gone, the tautness of her features gone, a look of peace replacing it. And despite the scars streaking her face, she almost glowed.
I have been Zorreale's slave for 7 years, and she would have killed me, but Rhaegar, her captain, sent me to spy on you. He is hunting you, father, and you, prince. I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. I was ordered to follow you and stay with you until you had gathered the strength to attack her again. Then I was to warn her.
She began, her stuttering gone. All that was left of her twisted speech was a lisp through her missing teeth. She burst into tears, but swallowed them back.
Thank you, please. This God you serve has done more for me than mine ever could.
The men just listened, not surprised by anything she had said so far. Vera was crying tears of joy, and then she grabbed her head.
Things are unclear. I have forgotten to tell you something.
She wiped her eyes and searched the ground. Sometimes her dog mind and human mind didn't weld well, and she couldn't always place last events. Now that the demon was gone, her experiences as a hound became memories.
They have a prisoner in the tower. Man, I think Rhaegar has been keeping him a secret from Zorreale.
Is it Taff? The man that came through with us?
Flint chimed in. Vera looked at Flint, for the first time, as herself. Flint turned away, embarrassed. He was daunted by her haggard face and scars.
I think so. Zorreale did not know about him.
The priest's brow furrowed, and he looked to Cardigan.
If this is indeed Lady Rhona's friend, and Flint's, we must proceed with caution and keep our mission secret. She could kill him before we have the chance to rescue him.
Flint was worried about Taff now. After seeing what Zorreale did to her slaves, there was no telling how far she'd go with a prisoner.
She will not kill him unless you attack her. And since he knows nothing of where you are, she will not torture him terribly. I hope.
Vera offered, but again she began to shake and whimper. Rhona approached unnoticed, hearing what Vera had said. The scene she walked into made her hesitate. Something was different about everyone in a drastic way. She had never seen the woman before, and, judging by the expressions on the guys' faces, something big just went down. She waited outside the ring of candlelight, hoping the woman wasn't talking about Taff. But the knot in the pit of her stomach told her it was true. Cardigan's good-natured expression gave way to one of worry. Saying nothing, he turned his eyes, finding the stars. He held out his hands and started praying out loud. Rhona couldn't help but remember how deranged he seemed in prison when she had first met him. Here he was, ranting and raving again, addressing God as if he were a friend.
Just when I was starting to like this guy, he pulls another crazy move.
Rhona thought to herself. She didn't want to eavesdrop on Cardigan, or make it seem like she was joining him in prayer, so she gathered her courage and walked into the light next to Flint.
Who's this?
Interrupting something the priest was saying.
Rhona,
Flint said, rushing to her and pulling her aside to explain.
that is the dog. She was cursed and demon-possessed, and Priest Michael just I don't know what he did, actually. I guess I just witnessed a real exorcism. Rhona, this stuff is creeping me out. I'm beginning to worry that this is only going to get worse. We need to get out of here as soon as possible.
Really, Flint? You expect me to believe the priest exorcised a demon out of a dog and turned it into a woman? What are you smoking, man? I've been gone for 20 minutes. You're wanting to run away. Crazy man over there is talking to the stars. And there's a strange, pathetic woman covered in mud telling stories over a candle to a priest who is the only one acting remotely sane. Seriously, Flint, what is going on?
Rhona grabbed Flint by the shoulders and forced him to look her in the eye.
Okay, look, Rhona, the woman, her name is Vera, and she just told us that your friend Taff is alive. And a few minutes ago, she was...
He was trying hard to explain, but again, Rhona didn't understand.
How does she know about him? What does she know about Taff?
She was getting more skeptical by the minute.
Well, I don't know exactly. She says she was Zorreale's slave and Rhaegar is hunting us, and they sent her to locate us and keep track of what we are doing. So I guess she's seen him or something.
Flint said, watching Rhona pace back and forth.
Wait, what? I need to process this. So she's the spy? I haven't seen her before. What'd you guys really do with her dog?
Rhona, I'm serious. She was the dog, I'm not lying. But that wasn't the worst of it. I literally saw the demon leave her. It's so crazy. That's why we just have to leave. We have to go because all this stuff is weirding me out big time. The things we've chalked up to legend and myths are appearing right before my eyes, and if it's all true...
Flint's voice trailed off as he remembered the smoke, the figures in the fire. Now this?
Flint, listen to me. You're tired. The long day is getting to you. I get it. I'm skeptical too, but I'm staying because 1, I want to see the Enchantress pay for what she's done to all these people and Dad. And 2, because I'm going to do all I can to save Taff. I wouldn't leave even if what you're saying is true. I've done a lot of stupid stuff, and this is my chance to make up for it. So go ahead and leave, but I'm going to see this through if I have to assassinate the witch myself.
Rhona said, trying not to raise her voice. Flint let out a frustrated sigh, taking off his glasses and resting one hand on his hip as he rubbed his eyes with the other. Rhona rolled her eyes back and looked up at the stars. Their abundant beauty always stopped her in her tracks, no matter what was going on around her.
You'll be okay, Flint. I won't let anything happen to you. Hang in there. Get some sleep. Sometimes fatigue can mess with your head. We're going nowhere till this is all solved.
Flint nodded, and, glancing back at the candlelit faces of Vera and the priest, walked off shaking his head. Magic, miracles, God, demons, all materialized right in front of his face. This meant so much beyond his control was true.
Heaven and hell? A true possibility now. This isn't what I need right now.
Rhona stayed where she was, wondering how anything could have gotten to Flint that way. Rhona crossed her arms and leaned against a post at the edge of the shed, listening in on the priest's conversation with the helpless woman. She had one eye on Cardigan, who was praying more quietly now. From what Vera was telling Priest Michael, it was plain that Zorreale and Rhaegar were bickering for power, and that Zorreale had the upper hand. Her resources were greater than they had at first realized. Vera told them she had enslaved even more people since the fire. The fortress was being beefed up. It would take a serious siege to bring it down. When the priest found out she was housing people inside the walls, he understood why the stronghold would be impossible to breach. No decent person would burn the walls if women and children were locked inside them. Zorreale and Rhaegar were using them as a shield. Cardigan returned, looking weary. He noticed Rhona and bowed his head slightly. She did the same, and that made him grin.
I have to make a difficult decision, Vera. I appreciate your honesty and thank you for telling us all you can. Your revelation, however, gives me pause. I'm sorry, but we cannot talk any further.
The Welshman remained calm, yet concern saturated his voice. Vera looked slightly hurt. The priest gave her hand a tight squeeze.
All is well, child. If you can remember anything else, please tell what you can remember.
Flint returned and stood next to Rhona.
Couldn't sleep.
If you are thinking you can rescue this man, my prince, you cannot. Do not try. All will be lost. You cannot do it. Please, my prince. I beg you. He will survive the winter. I know. I've been locked in the tower before. He is a valued prisoner. She will not let him die of cold or hunger or... Prince, pray he does not try to escape. She will surely kill him if he does.
Vera pleaded, looking from face to face, trying to make them understand the gravity of her advice.
If you try to rescue him now, he will die, and you will die, and they will all die.
She buried her face in her hands and drew her knees up. Priest Michael stood, a hulk in the dark. He bent over and laid his hand on Vera's head.
Rest now, child.
He motioned for the others to follow him out of earshot.
We must leave before dawn, Prince Cardigan. Let us ready ourselves. Entrust someone with her, someone who has compassion. Vera cannot be allowed to leave, for if the enemy recaptures her, she will lose her life. She is valuable, but also precious to God. Make sure she is treated well. I fear people will shame her for her scars.
Indeed, Father. I will leave her with Edward. Lady Rhona, Flint, are you prepared to leave?
We will be ready when you are.
Rhona replied, and she meant it. For months now, they had stood by Cardigan, the priest, and the townsfolk of Brecon, witnessing and experiencing the horrors inflicted on them by Zorreale and Rhaegar. Too much was still uncertain. But the one thing Rhona knew, she wasn't going to go down without a fight. And by the looks of it, neither were any of her companions. For the first time in her life, Rhona Thatcher knew she had made the right choice. Now the twins were on an adventure set in motion by a god they didn't know, with a ragtag group that had the courage of a mighty army. But lurking in the shadows, using methods of devious intent, Zorreale watched, waiting for a moment to strike hard and fast. Cardigan's mission to seek the help of other Welsh lords was a foolhardy mission, doomed to failure. It would not be by the might of men that she would be held back. As the priest, Cardigan, Little Daffith, and the Thatchers began packing for their journey to the north, another hound could be seen leaving Gandwy's castle, and he was headed back to Zorreale's keep. You've been listening to the finale of Season 1 of 1232, Episode 30, produced by RumbleStump Entertainment, written by Callie Sue and Cheyenne Bell, narrated by Callie Sue. Today's voice talents include Matt Burke as Cardigan, Corey Keller as Flint Thatcher, Sid Goodlow as Priest Michael, Robin Cage as Rhona Thatcher, Kaylin Landry as Daffith, and Lauren Harding as Vera. This episode was mixed and engineered by Jet Black, with editing and sound design by KC Caballero Sounds. Music by Callie Sue and Jet Black, with cover art by Niall C. Grant. This episode was made possible by our generous and incredible backers through Kickstarter. You know who you are. To our knights, our bards, our Welsh bowmen, our wizards and chieftains, thank you.